The 22 terabyte per second attack was traced to over 404,000 unique source IPs across 14 ASNs. I mean,
Wow.
Good Lord, you want to talk about a massive, massive botnet. But as you mentioned, the source here are a bunch of IoT devices. And Chris, when people buy those brand new toothbrushes and they connect them to the internet without any sort of protections in place, all of a sudden, your fridge and your toothbrush and your smart light bulbs are launching attacks against organizations.
Welcome to the Cybersecurity Defenders Podcast Weekly Intel Chat. My name's Christopher Luft. I'm one of the co-founders of LimaCharlie, and I will be your host. Joining me today to break down the cybersecurity news being shared by the awesome InfoSec community is the one and only Matt Bromley. And don't forget, this podcast is brought to you by LimaCharlie, maker of the SecOps Cloud platform, infrastructure for security operations. Think of it as a backend for your MSSP, where everything is built API first. Scale with ease and confidence as your business grows. You can start today for free at limacharlie.io. Now let's get into it. All right. Welcome to the show once again, Matt Bromley. How are you doing today?
Hey, Chris, I'm doing well, sir. How are you doing today? Good to hear from you. It's almost the end of October. Can you believe it?
I know. Gearing up for Halloween on Friday. I don't even think my kids know what they're going to be yet, so we're going to be doing some last-minute costume creating.
I'll be honest with you. Over the years, Halloween has become more of a last-minute holiday for a lot of folks than I think we'd like to admit. It's the one holiday you can plan for every year. You know exactly what you need. You need a costume and you need candy. But I find most of the time, you learn on like October 25th what you'll be dressed up as or what your costume might be. And most of the time, folks are like, what do we have in the closet from last year? Yeah, you can just be that again. That's okay. No one's going to remember.
Yeah. You should see my neighbor, though. They've got like inflatable things with blinking lights and skeletons. Yeah,
they dress up like it's Christmas, huh? Good stuff.
No kids either, which is a little weird.
That's okay. Adult Halloweeners, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. To every person, their own path.
That's right.
All right, let's dive into it. Got some interesting stuff. First up, I have some really great research shared via Zach Allen's Detection Engineering weekly newsletter. If you haven't subscribed, I definitely recommend it. The UK Information Commissioner's Office, or ICO, recently released a comprehensive 136-page report detailing the BlackBasta ransomware attack on Capita in March 2023. The incident had a significant impact. Over 6 million individuals had personal data exfiltrated. Capita was fined £14 million, and the cost of recovery reportedly reached £20 million. Capita, a major UK government contractor, provides services for high-profile public sector operations, including the BBC TV licensing system, the UK congestion charge, and several Ministry of Defence projects. The breach affected multiple legal entities within Capita, including both data controllers and data processors, which increased the complexity and scale of the data exposure. According to the ICO's timeline, the compromise started with a malicious JavaScript file, triggering a high-priority alert on March 22, 2023. Despite this, the alert went unaddressed for 58 hours. During this window, BlackBasta operators escalated privileges using a domain admin account, moved laterally across at least 8 domains, exfiltrated large volumes of data, and ultimately attempted a ransomware deployment across 1,057 hosts. The attackers exploited the lack of Active Directory tiering and the misuse of privileged service accounts. Capita only initiated its major incident response process 7 days after the initial compromise, at which point data exfiltration was already well underway. I know you're probably going to comment it, but I read through this report. It does seem like there was a little bit of a lack of due diligence on the side of Capita in this one.
Yeah, Chris, I'll admit, usually when you see fines like this handed down, and I actually, in the article, there's a link to it, and I'm kind of zoomed in right here. Penalty of £8 million against Capita PLC, a penalty of £6 million against CPSL, which I'm guessing is some sort of a subsidiary, looking for where that actually gets broken down or broken out. But long story short, usually, there we go, Capita Pension Solutions Limited. So $8 million, $6 million, $14 million total. Usually in these types of situations, Chris, when you're looking at when you're looking at payments like this and vulnerability exploitation or some sort of an exposure, you're right. It is usually due to some sort of a lack of due diligence, incorrect security posture. Maybe someone, unfortunately, was not compliant in what they should have been. Reading through the bushidotoken.net link that we're using for this article here, and of course, all links are available in the show notes as always. They talk about what Capita Group does, data processors for business services. Chris, I know you're going to talk a little bit about the attack and some of the details in just a moment here, but one of the things to zoom in on is, a lack of due diligence. I believe there were some weak approaches from a security perspective. And this is, where we kind of drive home that idea of the cost of good security versus the cost of fines. And, 14 million pounds, and that's just the assessment from a fine perspective. That probably doesn't have to do with any other sort of fines or, breach recovery costs or anything
I
else
would
they've
add
had to pay.
brand and reputation damage to that too. Like when
brand
something like this
damage,
happens to you,
customer impact, all of the above. And I mean, that's going to have an impact on the organization. And it just goes to show, like, at the end of the day, security is cheaper. It's cheaper to implement security. Here we go. I apologize. In May 2023, Capita said it cost up to 20 million pounds to recover. So, Chris, as of right now, my loose cocktail napkin math is 34 million pounds to recover from BlackBasta ransomware in March 2023. Fines included. I can't imagine that their security program would have cost more than 36 million pounds to implement. 34 million pounds to implement. So for me, Chris, this article and this whole situation here is really just a focus on implementing the right types of security. I'm not saying implementing security is going to get you through the weeds 100% of the times. It doesn't mean you'll never get attacked, and it doesn't mean you'll never have to deal with ransomware threat actors. But here we go, right? And you'll talk about this a little bit. March 22nd in the timeline, a missed SLA alert sent to Capita's SOC, unfortunately, that was a result of some malicious JavaScript being downloaded. I mean, SOC actioned a particular alert in place, but the adversary was able to get away from them too quickly. Ended up with almost a terabyte of stolen data from the systems. And Chris, I'll let you talk a little bit more about some of where the SOC unfortunately missed some opportunities. But folks, it just goes to show, when you weigh that difference between should we pay for security or should we not, the long tail effect of what you get hit with, it's very costly. And for me, this is a situation of, like, the bare minimum isn't good enough anymore.
Yeah, so Capita's internal response also showed significant shortcomings in SOC staffing and operational readiness. The ICO highlighted that Capita failed to meet SLA response times for any alert level in the 6 months surrounding the incident, with only one SOC analyst per shift at the time. Oh boy. The team missed multiple critical escalation opportunities. Key incident response activities such as device isolation and alert triage were entirely manual, leading to significant delays. The absence of automated containment capabilities via a SOAR platform meant that threat actor persistence and lateral movement went unchallenged for days. On the technical front, the attacker used a PowerShell-based command, likely executed via Cobalt Strike's PowerPick, to enumerate systems within Capita's Citrix Active Directory environment. This points to deliberate reconnaissance efforts aimed at supporting both lateral movement and ransomware targeting. Capita had previously received warnings during penetration tests regarding the very AD privilege issues that enabled the breach. However, these findings were not remediated in time. The post-mortem underscores several key lessons for enterprise defenders: configure and operationalize security tools, enforce tiered AD architectures, act swiftly on pen test findings, and automate key parts of incident response. The incident is a case study in how technical debt, under-resourcing, and weak SOC processes can compound to allow extensive damage even in organizations with robust tool sets on paper. So yeah, the tool's not going to solve the problem. You got to use it and understand your problem.
One SOC analyst per shift. Yikes! Can you imagine?
That poor person.
And I'm looking through this here. They had this called out in this article somewhere earlier. The Capita Group employed 34,500 people with an annual reported revenue of 2.4 billion pounds. I mean, folks, we can focus on the numbers all we want, and it's easy to throw shade historically and retroactively. We never want to be in a position where we're obviously, intentionally making a different security team feel bad about what they're doing. But if you're a leader or a stakeholder and you're listening to this, or you're seeing this fine happen, please take this as a warning that regulatory bodies aren't messing around. Number one, right? The fines are real. Number two, beef up your security. Like if you're in charge of, or if you're managing 2.4 billion pounds of revenue every single year,
and you got one person on the shift.
Yeah, wrap the protections around that. I mean, if you want to look at it from that way, think about it. You're protecting your revenue sources, and there's a lot of call outs and a lot of unfortunate misses here from a capita perspective. But nonetheless, just, address your posture. And this isn't a shout out to anyone in the UK, like, oh, the ICO is coming after you. This is a shout out to folks around the globe. Regulatory bodies are not messing around, number one. Number two, it's always cheaper to implement security. At least in my experience, I've never seen a situation where it's cheaper to just get fined. But who knows? Maybe someone out there has the dice to prove the opposite.
All right. Next up, Kaspersky researchers have detailed 2 active campaigns from North Korean APT group BlueNoroff, also known as APT-38 or Sapphire Sleet, which continue the group's long-running snatch crypto operation targeting individuals in financial and tech sectors. While historically focused on macOS, the new campaigns, dubbed Ghost Call and Ghost Hire, demonstrate a broad cross-platform capability and noticeable increase in the use of generative AI to assist in malware creation. The shift comes amid a wider push by BlueNoroff to expand their data acquisition tactics, extending beyond cryptocurrency theft to include supply chain and secondary attack opportunities. Ghost Call primarily targets tech and VC executives on macOS. The campaign begins with initial outreach on platforms like Telegram, often using compromised accounts of real startup founders. Victims are lured into fake Zoom or Microsoft Teams meetings hosted on phishing domains. Instead of using deep fakes, BlueNoroff reuses real recordings of previous victims to build credibility. After a fake meeting, victims are prompted to install what appears to be a Zoom update, leading to a malware infection chain. Payloads observed in this campaign include Down Troy, a loader, Real-Time Troy, a backdoor, Silent Siphon, a credential stealer, and Cosmic Door, a remote access Trojan. These are delivered through multi-stage loaders, depending on the victim's OS. Now, the fact that they use pre-recorded calls on the Zoom call, I don't know which 1980s, family movie I'm thinking of, but I see a kid there with like a pre-recorded soundboard, playing the particular
I'm thinking
response.
of Home Alone.
There you go. That's
what
it.
Yeah. Filthy animals. By the way, Chris, fun little factoid. That's actually, if I'm remembering this correctly, that's actually not a movie. It was a scene recorded for Home Alone. If I remember correctly. Yeah. And I'm trying to remember exactly the quote there. Keep the change, you filthy animals. That's what it was.
Yeah.
But one of those situations where you're kind of like using a recording and that's what you use. I mean, I find this, I don't want to say this is hilarious. But looking at kind of the screen share on the Secure List blog post, they're actually like playing a video. And then it's funny, but Chris, here's how they do it. When I first read this, I was thinking to myself, like, oh, wow, like how long does someone sit there and watch a pre-recorded video? But it says here approximately 3 to 5 seconds later, and you might be drilling into this a little bit further in a moment, but approximately 3 to 5 seconds later, an error message appears below the participants' feeds, telling them to launch an update. And I find this one to be just a really, really interesting approach. Look, you and I have both mentioned this multiple times now. We don't like to give threat actors credit, but we've kind of talked about the North Korean approach towards campaigns and, what they do to infiltrate organizations and whatnot. They've really, really leaned into the, job world, if you will, as like their means in. That's what they're using to deploy malware and targeting blockchain developers, C-level executives, managers within the Web3 blockchain industry. I don't want to say hats off, but congrats on the continued persistence. Like they are going after the blockchain and no one else is doing it like they are. But we've talked about deepfake videos. We've talked about LinkedIn fishes. We've talked about all sorts of attack vectors. And here they are now, like, how do we trick someone to run malicious code from a Zoom meeting? And they show up with pre-recorded videos, say it doesn't work. I mean, the lengths they're going to build these campaigns out are just, it's wild. And you can see how much research and effort these adversaries are putting into it. I'm not saying it's right. And I'm not saying they deserve what they're doing, but it makes it very difficult for folks to like, okay, well, that was clearly wrong. So this makes it a fish, right? That was wrong. So it makes it a fish. They get on a legitimate Zoom meeting. Like, Chris, think about this sentence: malware distribution via Zoom. Like, that's a sentence that we wouldn't have ever thought of, you know? They're utilizing Gen AI to write more malware. That they're really up in their game, and it's making difficult for a lot of folks to kind of stay up on like, well, you know, where do we actually like implement our detections? Where do we actually kind of stop this? It is the job of certain folks in a company to get on Zoom calls and listen to recruiters and listen to prospects and listen to new hires and that kind of stuff. So, you know, like, what's your guidance here, right? Like, don't get on a Zoom. The guidance really is, and I think you'll talk about this in a second, the guidance really is don't run scripts that you don't trust. Didn't mean to steal that from your Chris, but I knew
might
it
have
was
said
coming.
that before. Yeah.
I knew it was coming.
I do find it's quite genius, like social engineering, because like you get on that call and everybody's time's precious, and you know the person's sitting there and you just want to get it working. So very easy to like not be thinking about security in that moment and just execute the thing. So Ghost Hire follows a job recruitment pretext to target Web3 developers, again using Telegram for communication and GitHub to host malicious code. Victims are encouraged to complete a coding task within 30 minutes, pressuring them into running malware without adequate inspection. The Zip or GitHub hosted project appears to be a legitimate DEFI-related Go application, but the real payload is introduced via an external dependency named UniRoute hosted on the Go packages repository. This campaign dynamically selects payloads based on the victim's user agent, allowing it to infect both Windows and Mac OS systems. Malware used overlaps with Ghost Call, including Windows variants of tools like Cosmic Door. A notable theme in both campaigns is the increased role of generative AI in facilitating malware development and enhancing the realism of social engineering. BlueNoroff appears to be using AI both to craft more convincing lures and to accelerate malware production. The campaigns are coordinated via a unified C2 infrastructure, indicating strong operational discipline. Kaspersky suggests this evolution is aimed at lowering operational overhead while expanding attack reach. The combination of AI, realistic social pretexts, and cross-platform payloads makes these campaigns particularly dangerous for organizations and individuals in the crypto and tech sectors. Kaspersky has published full IOCs for defenders to integrate into their detection workflows. Yeah, man, both of those are such clever social engineering hacks. You know, the Zoom call, there's a pressure there, but also like the job interview. This is something you want to perform on. You're not going to be looking at that code too closely. You're going to get it on your machine, download the dependencies, and then get to trying to solve the problem, which is what you're going to be judged on.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I get why you said what you did. Calling it genius, you're not far off, actually. And I have to give credit to the threat actors. We're not complimenting them, but we will give some credit. It's a really multi-layered campaign, Chris, and I'm in agreement with you as well. It's a lot of research. It is pretty genius how they brought it together here. And it makes it difficult because I'm going to say something that might be a little controversial to some of our listeners here, but the more you have to rely on user education, user interpretation, or gut check feels about blocking against an adversary is unfortunately the weaker a security posture gets. That's not slamming users or throwing anything negative into the mix. It's an honest assessment that when you lean on, is that a fish? Is that a fish? I'm not too sure. The
People
link
get
looks
tired,
okay.
they get emotional.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many factors as opposed to a detection rule that says this is bad, this is bad, this is bad every time, right? And I think what the threat actors have figured out is the more we can rely on human behavior as a detection mechanism, the more success we're going to have. And they implement these very human style attacks. Right? Being on a Zoom meeting, getting that frustration when the meeting doesn't load. Okay, here's a thing you can run, a troubleshooting message that pops up. Yep. Okay, I guess I can run this PowerShell. Sure, that looks good. So I'll just run a thing. And then you're infected. And next thing you know, it's kind of like, well, wait, what do I do now? And, if we look at the attack chain here, the initial infection flow, the script reaches out to a domain, downloads multiple different Apple scripts and downloaders that ultimately results in something, Chris, called Google Chrome Update. I mean, again, if you're kind of just browsing your way through different files and whatnot, you're looking at that as like, oh, okay, Chrome Update. Gotcha. Makes sense. And it's tough. It creates a tough world. They're literally hiding needles inside of haystacks and getting caught.
It really shows what we're up against. Like these guys don't stop. They're clever. They innovate, and don't want to give them credit, but they're not dumb.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm with you on that one. Well, I'll be happy to say they're not dumb. I mean, what they're doing is obviously working, right?
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it is a really really important distinction for, I think, folks going, kind of folks thinking about like, where do we go from here, or how do I defend against this kind of stuff? Educate users, educate users, educate users, and don't be afraid to tell folks if you don't like it or if you don't feel good about it, then just don't do it, right? Report it and let us know.
Yeah. All right. So next up, we have another one from Kaspersky, who has attributed the exploitation of the first Chrome 0 day of 2025, CVE-2025-2783, a sandbox escape vulnerability, to a state-sponsored threat actor involved in Operation ForumTroll, a cyber espionage campaign targeting Russian entities across sectors like education, finance, media, and government. The attack chain began with phishing emails designed to resemble legitimate forum invitations. These emails directed victims to a website hosted on a short-lived personalized exploit for Chrome, which validated the user before executing shellcode that bypassed the browser's sandbox and dropped a malware loader. The malware achieved persistence by hijacking Windows COM object search order through registry modifications, a known technique for stealthy, long-term access. A Firefox vulnerability, CVE-2025-2857, was also found to be similarly exploitable, though the primary attack path observed in this campaign focused on Chrome. The final payload in ForumTroll was Elite Agent, Elite Speak name spyware capable of keylogging, file exfiltration, shellcode injection, and remote command execution. Communication with its command and control server hosted on fastly.net was encrypted via HTTPS. This spyware has been active since at least 2022, previously used against targets in Russia and Belarus. So I was a little confused. I'm pretty sure we've had some Chrome 0 days already this year. Was that saying that they're exploiting one that came out earlier, or are they saying that's the first one of 2025?
I think they're reaching back to March 2025 as when Kaspersky first started to detect this. Yeah, it's reaching back to the 0 day that was announced in March 2025. I believe
that's
now
still
we're
pretty
seeing
good. Got through January and February. Yeah.
But I think now we're seeing exploitation of it from an attack chain perspective. First off, hats off to the folks at Kaspersky/SecureList. You're doing great with your article and blog images and whatnot. The previous one had a ghost on a phone. This is the ForumTroll. I'm thinking like, Greek forum. At least that's the impression I'm getting out of it, but a troll as well. Really nice job on the visuals for sure. But in walking through this particular attack path here, we see kind of a phishing email, validator, RCE exploit. The sandbox escape, Chris, is what's really part of the exploit there, and then getting into kind of the spyware being loaded and whatnot. I think we've talked about this before, but usually when you see these types of mobile exploits and these phishing emails take place, and I mean, we're talking about a pretty serious issue here from a Chrome perspective. It is usually geared towards politically motivated articles. They're going and trying to go after folks who are reading on certain topics, and that's what they're using as their way in. Right. Mm-hmm. And in this case here, the malicious emails by the attackers were sent to be invitations from the organizers of the Primakov Readings Scientific and Expert Forum, the Primakov Institute of World Economy and International Relations of the Russian Academy of Sciences. So we're seeing interest in a particular part of the world. There is some additional stuff that says other cases suggest that the attackers were not native Russian speakers. So what they're doing from a targeting perspective is making sure that the phishing email lands in the right inboxes. And then we get to like the sandbox escape, right? Where they are actually kind of stepping outside of the browser. This one is very technical. There's a great walkthrough here of the adversaries kind of hooking into a bunch of different functions, calling a console debug with a specific shellcode address, and then like creating an IPCZ message. And it's a really awesome technical walkthrough. Hats off SecureList team for describing this really clearly, and then getting into kind of like the persistence mechanisms of talking about how the adversary did what they did. And in this case, it's a little bit of it's a little, I'm not going to call it search order hijacking. It is a little bit similar to search order hijacking, but usually we see that from a DLL perspective, which is the case. But there's actually some COM hijacking in here where they store a value in a registry hive that gets hit before the local machine hive does. And we can see an example in a screenshot here, Chris. They actually bury a malicious DLL in app data, and they store the reference to that DLL in HKey current user, which from a Windows registry perspective is read or accessed before HKey local machine. And there's a version of, DLL hijacking where you kind of understand the Windows search order, how Windows in a sequential manner accesses various parts of the operating system to do a thing. And if your legitimate file is in position 3 and you can get in position 1 or 2, you can get your thing loaded first. And here this is COM hijacking. They're doing it from a registry perspective. But really interesting attack flow. I won't go too much. There's all sorts of capabilities of the malware here and whatnot. And, there's some even more interesting examples of kind of how they tie this back to commercial spyware known as Dante, which was developed by the company Memento Labs. I think you're actually going to talk about that a little bit further, Chris, so I won't go too much into that one. But really lengthy attack, great read. And I recommend anyone check out the show notes and certainly take a look at the walkthrough here. And if you're into this kind of stuff, it's a really, really cool technical walkthrough with a lot of great data points.
Yeah. So Lee Agent also acts as a precursor to more advanced implants. In some operations, though not directly in ForumTroll, it is served to deploy Dante, the flagship surveillance tool of Memento Labs, formerly known as Hacking Team. Dante is a modular spyware system built around a stealthy orchestrator that dynamically loads components and performs anti-analysis checks. The spyware self-deletes if it fails to communicate with its C2 within a defined time frame, reducing forensic artifacts. While Dante was not deployed in ForumTroll itself, Kaspersky identified overlapping TTPs. For new listeners, that's techniques, tools, and processes between this campaign and others where Dante was used. These include consistent persistent mechanisms, use of data hidden in font files, shared file system paths, and code-level similarities in the exploit chain. Hacking Team, again, now Memento Labs, has a long history in surveillance tooling, best known for its Remote Control System, or RCS, also called Da Vinci. Following the 2015 breach that exposed its internal operations, it was acquired by the in the cyber group and restructured. The evolution from RCS to Dante reflects a sustained focus on stealth, modularity, and operational security. The fact that current campaigns share exploit code and infrastructure with known Memento Lab spyware suggests that the underlying toolset and potentially the customer base has remained active and well-resourced. Operation ForumTroll illustrates how APT actors are combining zero-day exploits, custom loaders, and legacy surveillance ecosystems to conduct long-term espionage while evading detection across modern browser platforms. So yeah, I find this one interesting, not only for the technical bits, but the fact that it's targeting Russian speakers from non-Russian speakers. So who's at play in this one, Matt?
This one's a little tough. I think there might be some red herrings thrown in there, and I'm looking through to see if Kaspersky ever actually announces who actually does this. The one thing that I'll throw in here, the ForumTroll APT, I won't name a nation behind it, Chris, Operation ForumTroll, if you will. But one thing I will mention from a, I'm going to call it kind of like a typical CTI perspective. And I don't mean to be generalizing. Please, if anyone's listening to this in your CTI analysis, don't take this as Matt's expert general opinion and whatnot. But a lot of times when you're dealing with spyware and you're dealing with, tools that are meant to actively spy on organizations. And I'm going to throw another element into the mix, Chris, and I'm looking for it in the article here, which is what I'm scrolling for. Excuse me. But yeah. They're bringing in the Dante tool, as you talked about, which I believe is made by Memento Labs. which used to be called Hacking Team, for anyone who remembers back in the day. Where I'm going with this statement is when someone is purchasing commercially developed, highly capable adversarial tools like this, and they're using them for spyware, a lot of times the target victim pool is associated with some sort of political dissidents, journalists, folks who are part of like a revolution or some sort of kind of government opposition or something like that. There's enough conflicts in the world right now that it would be hard to narrow it down. But to me, this particular case I should say, the investigation reads a lot like going after journalists or dissidents or something. It's a very, very specific topic when someone is opening emails and they're interested in the Primakov readings. It's an interesting topic. You've got likely a very, small group of people who might be actually looking to attend these, Chris. This isn't like, hey, who would like to attend the Oscars this year, or anyone interested in the Grammys and stuff like that, right? This is a very specific focus. And if this is the fish that you're using to get in, you're speaking volumes about the people that you're targeting. This is a scientific and expert forum, right? So that right there tells you what type of people they're looking to infect. And usually when you're going after like scientific or research, folks, you're going after their research, you're going after their conversations, you're going after their IP. And that's not usually done by your run-of-the-mill adversary. That's not done by your run-of-the-mill cyber criminal. This isn't going to lead to a ransomware attack necessarily. This is usually some sort of a government who's trying to figure out, what's happening. Well, what are they doing? What's going on? What's the latest of this research?
Yeah. Long-term strategic stuff.
Oh yeah. All the fun bits.
All right. So last up, NetScout has identified a newly emerging Internet of Things botnet. Aisuru, which already launched a distributed denial of service attack exceeding 20 terabytes per second, which is placing it amongst the most powerful botnets observed to date. Aisuru is part of a broader class of Turbo Myray malware, a modern evolution of the original Myray botnet that famously exploited insecure IoT devices to perform massive DDoS attacks, like its predecessor.
I think it's Mirai. Mirai botnet. I think it's Mirai, but I am trying to remember. I'm reaching back in time here.
I think you're right. Mirai.
Yeah.
A modern evolution of the original Mirai botnet that famously exploited insecure IoT devices to perform massive DDoS attacks, like its predecessor, Aisuru, compromises consumer-grade equipment such as broadband routers, CCTV cameras, and DVRs. Apparently no JavaScript toothbrushes, though. Especially those running OEM firmware with known vulnerabilities. What sets Turbo Mirai class malware apart is its ability to amplify per-node attack traffic and its multifunctionality. In addition to DDoS, Aisuru includes tooling for credential stuffing, AI-driven web scraping, phishing, spamming, and residential proxy services, indicating a monetization model that goes beyond disruption. However, unlike earlier botnets, Aisuru's operators are selective with their targets. Attacks have mainly focused on online gaming platforms, avoiding government or law enforcement entities. So it's interesting. These botnets can be incredibly powerful. And, in the past, they were kind of used as a cudgel, but it seems like they're stuffing a lot of other capability into here and being smart about what they're going after.
I was surprised to hear that these things have all sorts of like credential stuffing, which is a password attack based on historical login information, web scraping, phishing, spamming, all sorts of stuff that I think are like kind of things that are for hire, really easy and, kind of little marketable commodities that someone might want to buy, right? Hey, I've got a bunch of credentials. Can you launch a credential stuffing scan attack for me or attack scan for me? Identifying vulnerabilities, utilizing AI to only increase the efficiency of this botnet. It's just, it's crazy to read about, Chris, and the volume, 20 terabits per second as well, is just crazy. I'm looking through, this is from September, but I think it's related to what we're talking about here. Cloudflare gave some information. The 22 terabyte per second attack was traced to over 404,000 unique source IPs across 14 ASNs. I mean, Good Lord, you want to talk about a massive, massive botnet. But as you mentioned, the source here are a bunch of IoT devices. And Chris, when people buy those brand new toothbrushes and they connect them to the internet without any sort of protections in place, all of a sudden your fridge and your toothbrush and your smart light bulbs are launching attacks against organizations. And it's wild just to hear about them. I know you've got some more insight into how they do what they do and the protocols that they use. But, something kind of to be aware of from an information security perspective is that there are, essentially an army of zombies out there that companies are using to do their bidding. And unfortunately, it's going to require another element of protection to lock down and not just connect these things to the internet and forget about them.
Yeah, and I think the craziest thing about it too is like those devices never get updated. So if they're manufactured with a vulnerability, that's probably going to live forever.
Yeah.
Or at
absolutely.
least for the life of the device. Yeah.
And I mean, we're not updating these things either. Let's be clear. I know a lot of people who have smart devices in their home. They're not walking around and updating them like, oh, this is something I should do. In fact, it's usually sometimes difficult to get any sort of auto updating in place. A lot of times you actually have to go and like open the app and specifically navigate to a section to enable an update, which can just make life even more difficult.
Yeah, and that's why occasionally you see like folks like the NSA just go and update something for you.
Fingers crossed. Yeah. They do that for us.
Yeah, okay. Technically, Aisuru retains the UDP, TCP, GRE, and DNS flood capabilities of legacy Mirai, but improves on them by introducing carpet bombing techniques, randomized port flag combinations, and organic HTTP-based DDoS payloads for application layer disruption. The botnet can carry out both high bandwidth and high throughput attacks, meaning it can overwhelm targets with either massive volumes of data or extremely high packet rates, both of which present different mitigation challenges. Despite its scale, Aisuru's current lack of spoofing functionality is a key operational weakness. Most infected devices reside in residential networks with source address validation mechanisms, and since the malware doesn't run with elevated privileges, it cannot forge packet origins. As a result, attacks are direct path and traceable, allowing defenders to link traffic back to specific subscriber networks. This enables ISPs and security teams to identify and quarantine infected endpoints, a critical advantage in mitigation efforts. Although at like 400,000 plus, like you're going to be busy. NetScout emphasizes the importance of treating outbound and crossbound suppression with the same priority as inbound traffic filtering. Effective response includes deploying intelligent DDoS mitigation systems, enforcing infrastructure ACLs at the network edge, and conducting proactive remediation of compromised customer premises equipment. As Turbo Mirai class malware continues to evolve, defenders must adopt full spectrum strategies that go beyond perimeter defense to include instrumentation of all network edges and collaborative cleanup mechanisms. Man, and we're just going to make more and more of these devices. Like 400,000 will probably seem quaint in another 10 years, right?
People will probably beg for only a 20 terabit per second attack in the future, I'm guessing. I don't know. Chris, do we ever reach a point where these attacks kind of push the edge of the internet? Or it's just kind of like that's as much as the pipes can handle, and that's as far as we go. I guess we'll never know. I should say we'll continue to build more and more infrastructure that can handle it, and adversaries will continue to kind of have these tricks up their back pocket, I guess. And this is I think one of the tough parts about it, Chris, is this isn't like, kind of a person kind of, puppet stringing a botnet and they launch these attacks at an interval schedule or whatnot. DDoS for higher service. Technically, someone with a big enough wallet could walk in and say, I want you to do this thing every minute, every hour, every day, and I'll pay you until, I don't know, like I run out of money. And that kind of stuff. And it's pretty scary because it's essentially like buying a battering ram at the front door. And the only limit to stopping the battery ram is how much money the person buying the ram actually has. And that's scary.
And I could see if we saw a high enough profile attack, or if these things became so big they become like a national security issue, I could see legislation being passed that makes the makers of these devices have to have an auto update feature before they can sell them, because I really think that's the biggest weakness in all of this, that your little Hue Light hub or whatever little device you bring into your home, it's basically stuck at that version. If you're really keen, you could probably figure out how to update it, but it's generally just going to sit there. And for most people, it's never going to get updated.
Chris, it's not the first time we've touted the idea of a startup here on this podcast, so I'll do it again because we're good at doing this, right? Here's what I'd love to see. I'd love to see some sort of a home protection device with built-in firewall segmentation capabilities or something. And it's essentially like, you don't need to teach the average bear how to create multiple Wi-Fi networks and segment stuff off and whatnot. Make it easy. Make it simple. You know, maybe another way to go about it is home routers or home devices get shipped with a built-in IoT network. And it's got some built-in mechanisms in place that protect against this kind of stuff. And that's just kind of the state of where the industry's at. And maybe we move to a point where people understand the differences between Wi-Fi networks, and we start to train a culture towards connect your IoT devices here, connect this thing over there, and here's why some of the differences are in place. And maybe we'll cut the population in half. And even then, like that's pretty good. That's 200,000 systems. I'll take it.
Yeah. Oh, and before we sign off here, Matt, I forgot to ask, where are you today?
I am currently, Chris, in Orlando, Florida. Matt continues to travel around the world. I will be back home next week for our next episode's recording. But I am currently in Orlando right now teaching some awesome folks how to do incident management leadership. And it's been a really cool time being here. I'm a stone's throw away from Epcot, Universal, and whatnot. But for any of our listeners who are in Orlando, your city's been very nice to me, and the weather is just perfect outside. So it's been great being here.
Awesome. Well, Matt, it's great chatting again. I hope you have a good time with your kids on Halloween, and we'll see you on the next one.
Appreciate it, Chris. You too. Have fun, whatever the costume decides to be, and take care. I'll see you next time.
All right. Take care.
Later.
And that brings us to the end of another Intel Chat. You can support this show by sharing your favorite episodes with a friend, or subscribing and giving us a rating or leaving a comment on your chosen podcast platform. If you want to be part of the conversation and access the intel we talk about in real time, you can join our community forum at community.limacharlie.io. Thanks for listening in, and we'll see you on the next one. The Cybersecurity Defenders podcast is hosted and produced by Christopher Luft. The show is co-produced and edited by Sam Blake with graphics by Amr Al-Khatib. Sponsored by LimaCharlie, scalable infrastructure for your security services. Visit limacharlie.io to get started for free.